You're listening to GWP Live. I'm your host, Isaac Edges, joined once again by co host Jacob Bulmer. Again, if all things are working loud and clear, we've been going through a number of different severe weather updates throughout the night. Hopefully, all of you, the folks at home, can hear loud and clear. Again, we have some new developments on the storm cycles along the course of the night. We are taking calls. If you'd like to call in, have any of your burning questions answered about the weather in your area, whether it be in our local listening area or just outside of it. We'd be glad to take those questions and answer them as best we can at 417 667 417 448. That is 0819. Again, if you'd like to call in, that number is 417 448 0819. Let us know what those questions are. So, without further ado, I understand we've had some very significant recent developments, Jake, on these storms. What do we know at this point?
Yeah, so we just had a new severe thunderstorm warning that was issued across the region here. So we're going to go ahead and take you into that here. So here we are, severe thunderstorm warning in southwestern Missouri. This does include parts of southern Jasper County, including Joplin. A severe thunderstorm warning was issued at 11:25 p.m. It was located along extending from Galena to 6 miles south of Shoal Creek Drive to around the Seneca area and is now moving through the Joplin area. So if you're in this warning area, you'll want to make sure to seek shelter immediately in an interior a room on the lowest level. That, of course, is where we would recommend you seeking shelter at. This warning goes until midnight tonight, so that is um, so yeah, the warning goes until midnight tonight. This does include Joplin as well as into Carthage. Neosho is under this warning as well, so this also extends into southern Newton County as well, just outside of our region here. So this goes for ping pong ball size hail as well as 60-mile-per-hour winds. That's going to be the threat. And so again, some very large hail is going to be possible with this storm system. And also, we just have some new information. There is also a tornado possible tag. So you will want to take shelter like there is a tornado in Joplin. So I repeat, if you are in Joplin or Carthage, you will want to take shelter like you are in a tornado warning. So tornado possible tag with this storm system. That means that there is a slight chance that we could see a tornado within this severe thunderstorm warning. So we're talking about large hail of up to ping pong size hail. And anytime we're dealing with an inch and a half, that's how big a ping pong ball is, inch and a half in diameter hail, we're talking about significant damage to vehicles, significant damage to siding as well as roofs. So again, significant damage is expected out of this storm here. This is a radar indicated threat. And then again, 60-mile-per-hour winds are going to be possible with damage to trees and roofs as well as sidings. So also people and animals can be injured from the large hail. So again, this is an active severe thunderstorm warning. It's a radar indicated threat. There is a tornado possible tag until midnight, and this does include Joplin and Carthage. Seek shelter as if you were under a tornado warning.
Absolutely. So don't be fooled by that ping pong ball size hail. Again, contrary to what one might think, that ping pong ball size hail is not the invitation to grab your paddles and come outside. Again, sorry to disappoint all the paddle sport enthusiasts and competitors out there. Again, perhaps not the best time. Again, injury and damage is possible. So resist the urge. Again, if you happen to have one in the lowest, most interior room of your house, knock yourself out, because if you go outside again with that ping pong ball sized hail, well, you won't need to knock yourself out. Again, chances are that'll already happen with that hail coming down on you. So, again, not a great time to go outside if you're in the Joplin, Carthage, Neosho area. We're under a severe thunderstorm warning. And, Jake, as you mentioned, there is a tornado possible tag associated with it. So again, not as severe as, say, a tornado watch, certainly not as severe as a tornado warning. Again, this is a pre-existing, of course, a pre-existing severe thunderstorm warning with, again, some slight signs that it may develop into a tornado. So we will continue to follow that. We'll know more about it as it goes on. Again, exactly what direction it goes in. Again, that's not a guarantee that it's going to become a tornado by any means, but there is that possibility. So we're going to continue to follow that. Certainly, that's when things would become more severe, but already at this point would be a good point, a good idea, as we mentioned, to go down into the lowest and most interior room of your house. Again, also, you may want to avoid structures like mobile homes. Again, if you're in a vehicle on the road, not ideal right now. Again, you want to get to a place where you can get inside. Again, ideally, not a mobile home. Again, those are different, of course, not the most firm foundations. Again, those can be damaged. Again, especially in the case of tornadoes, they can really be sucked up and again, taken off of their foundations again because it's much different because they are of course mobile homes and not in the sense of a permanent foundation. So again, some important precautions to take if you are in any of those areas, that being of course Carthage, Neosho, Joplin, any of those areas. You want to prepare accordingly and take shelter. And if you've missed any of this, we do have a video dedicated entirely to this severe weather preparedness, that GWP severe weather preparedness. You can check that out again to make sure that you're prepared for the event of any sort of severe weather. We talk extensively about things such as tornadoes, thunderstorms, things like that. We also talk about the possibility of flooding, so some very real threats for people across our listening area, and again, all across the country for that matter, and wherever you might be out there as well. As we mentioned at the top of this broadcast, if you've got any questions and you would like to call in and get those answered, you can do that at 417-448-0819. Again, wherever you might be, you can call in, not to fret. Again, we will answer those questions to the best of our abilities at 417-448-0819. Jake, do we have any new developments on the storms?
Yeah, so I was trying to see here, yeah, we were trying to see here if we currently do have a tornado, which again, I don't believe that we do at this point in time. And let's see, I didn't do that right. Experiencing some minor technical difficulties at this point in time, but we will continue
Absolutely.
to
Yes.
try to get that figured out here.
Yes, we thank you all for bearing with us through these minor technical difficulties as we're still figuring out some of these systems. So, again, certainly any of those questions, you can always call in with those. And again, we thank you for your patience as we deal with those things. Of course, a severe thunderstorm warning in effect for areas, again, primarily affecting the cities of Carthage, Joplin, and Neosho. Again, attached to that is a thunderstorm, or not a thunderstorm, a tornado possible tag. So again, we are continuing to follow that here. Again, Jake sort of browsing the radar at the moment, looking for signs of a developing tornado in the area. So again, what alerted that to us is the tornado possible tag attached to the present severe thunderstorm warning in the areas we mentioned just moments ago. So at this point, there's not a great deal of sign, not that we've seen yet, at least, of a tornado developing, though it is still possible. That's why it has that tag. Again, certainly the distinction. We go into that a little bit more in depth in our GWP severe weather preparedness video. Again, if you don't know the differences, that would be a great resource to check out. Break down the difference between, say, a tornado possible tag, a tornado watch, a tornado warning, and all these different things. So again, you're home for the latest in weather coverage, in addition to, again, the routine stuff is sports and news, even breaking news. We have a weekly GWP news weekly at the beginning of each week on Mondays, and at the end of the week, as we had, of course, earlier today, many weeks, GWP weekly recap. So again, some great resources there. Mentioned, of course, a while ago today in the GWP weekly recap that again, this storm is likely to run its course throughout the night. And again, leading into Saturday, you may have some lingering rain showers, some different things like that, but things are really going to start clearing up. Chances are for Easter, so that again, going into a better part of your Easter weekend, certainly Easter Sunday, chances are things will be nice and clear. We won't have to worry about a dreary, nasty Easter Sunday. So, Jake, do we have any more developments? I know you were searching to find, again, if this is starting any more to resemble a tornado in the area. What have you found?
Yeah, so I definitely think that we might have a funnel cloud at this point in time, and the reason why is I definitely doubt that we have a tornado at this point in time because so we've got two different radars that we're showing you. The one here on the left, that's showing you the actual rainfall, the precipitation itself, and then here on the right side, this shows us the winds that are happening in the atmosphere. So if we're having any rotation, this would show us like if there was a tornado or some straight line winds. That's what we've been using this here. It's called the velocity here. And so we've got two different ones. It's a side by side is what we're doing right here. That's why it took so long to get all of this together is because it's the same radar just duplicated on two different windows here side by side. And so what we'll notice here is as of 4 minutes ago, we had this Boeing segment right here. That's where we could be looking at some 60-mile-per-hour winds. And then right in here, that's where we're looking at the possibility of some hail of up to ping pong ball size hail, likely moving through eastern Joplin along Interstate 49. We actually did have a hail report that just recently came in across. Let's see. So we've had some hail of quarter size reported. Yeah, so we've had just a few recent hail reports, one in far southwestern Missouri. So that's something that we are continuing to watch out of this storm. And then, of course, there's also the tornado threat as well. So we've got the wind threat right here along the leading edge. There it is, just to the west of Granby. That's where we could be looking at 60-mile-per-hour winds. Then we have the hail right in here, just to the southeast of Joplin. Likely right along the interstate is where we're experiencing that hail at this point in time if it is still falling. But then that tornado threat is right in here, just to the south of Interstate 44 along Interstate 49. This is where we could be dealing with a tornado. And again, right now, I don't believe this is on the ground, but I do have reason to believe that we might have some rotation in the upper levels of the atmosphere. And if this rotation were to tighten, it could move down to the surface. So over the next 10 minutes, we need to watch this because a tornado could possibly develop to the south of Carthage. It would likely be moving into the Fidelity area or Fidelity as we go into the next couple of minutes here. Then it would move towards Sarcoxy and Avila. It would likely pass just to the south of Carthage. And so you'll see kind of that movement here. This is the area that we're concerned about, right in this spot. That's where there's been a little bit of rotation right here. And so you'll notice that it has kind of started to develop a little bit of a hook right here. So this could very well be a rain-wrapped tornado if it were to make it to the ground, which again, we don't have reason to believe that it is at this point in time, but it is possible that we have a rain-wrapped funnel cloud, I guess we would call it in this situation. And we also notice that we have a bit of what we would call a couplet here in that same location. So that indicates that not only do we have a hook that indicates a possible rain-wrapped tornado, but we also do have rotation that is happening in the upper levels of the atmosphere, which indicates that we have potentially a funnel cloud that is starting to form across this region. So again, there is a tornado possible tag, but at this point in time, we don't have any reason to believe that there is a tornado, but you should take shelter as if it was a tornado.
Absolutely. Yes, certainly the possibility of it, as we mentioned moments ago. Of course, that severe thunderstorm warning in the area, again, prominently affecting communities, Carthage, Joplin, Neosho. Again, some of those cities in the area again has that tag attached to it, that tornado possible tag, and we are now seeing a more possibility of it. And again, this thing alone, this severe thunderstorm warning with a tornado tag, as we mentioned at the time that this was issued, again, as soon as we found out about this, again, this is reason enough to take the precaution, again, to be on the safe side, to go into the lowest, most interior room of your home, as you would just in the case of, again, more severe tornado warning. Certainly in the case of a watch. Again, if you don't understand those terms, you can check out our previous GWP severe weather preparedness video. Get some important terminology information. But in that, we've been continuing to following the patterns with this severe thunderstorm that's going on across the area and noticing, of course, if you'll direct your attention, any of the viewers out there at home, to the radar picture on your screen, we're noticing a little bit of a hook shape in the region start to form. And again, that is indicative, quite possibly, of tornadoes. So it's in its very early stages, a bit of a funnel cloud possibly forming. Again, right here as we zoom in. Now, again, not yet a full-fledged tornado by any sense of the imagination, but again, this is what they start from. So again, it is possible. Again, it's looking more likely. Not yet a full-fledged tornado, but we're seeing a funnel cloud quite possibly beginning to form. So we will continue to follow that. And quite possible, and the folks, anyone out in that area who may be listening, you want to take the appropriate precautions. Again, if you're on the road, again, if possible, if you're in a safe spot, get to a structure, again, if at all possible, a sturdy one where you can get to the storm shelter, something like that, lowest, most interior room. In the case of tornadoes where the storm gets more severe, again, you want to just stop, get out of that vehicle, again, get to a lower place, a ditch or something in that case. But again, you want to take the appropriate precautions before it's too late in the case of this severe weather. Really, it is no joke. Jake?
Yes, certainly want to make sure that you take shelter if you're under this warning because again, there is that tornado possible tag. And so we'll show you kind of the latest scan that we had from the radar as of 11:49. Again, we still had that Boeing segment that had just moved towards the east of Interstate 49 around Fidelity and Diamond, getting in to some of the worst of the winds here. Again, 60-mile-per-hour winds. We did have an update that came in, and this was actually some good news showing that the storm is weakening. The radar is now indicating that we are likely dealing with only half dollar size hail instead of ping pong ball size hail. So the damage would be a little bit worse than it would have been before. So that is certainly some good news, maybe a sign that the storm is weakening, but it is certainly still dangerous and should certainly still be taken seriously. But again, that is certainly something that we could say is a good sign, is that the severe thunderstorm warning appears to now we're only tracking half dollar size hail instead of ping pong ball size hail, which is a quarter of an inch less. So it's a little bit less on that severe scale that we're tracking. Also, we just had the severe thunderstorm warning has just now been extended further towards the east. Still hasn't actually pulled up on this particular radar as it's a little bit behind, but we do have a severe thunderstorm warning that has been newly issued for Newton, Lawrence, in Jasper counties. This is an extension on the current severe thunderstorm warning. This goes until 12:30 a.m. and at 11:49, severe thunderstorms were located along the line extending from near Carterville to near Diamond to near Granby, and they were moving to the northeast at 40 miles per hour. We're looking at 60-mile-per-hour winds and nickel-size hail. So now it's actually gone below severe thresholds. So that is good news. So now the only thing that would be at severe limits would be the 60-mile-per-hour winds. We're looking at damage to roofs, siding, as well as trees. Locations that are under this newly issued severe thunderstorm warning include Carthage, Monette, Mount Vernon, Sarcoxie, Pierce City, Miller, Verona, as well as many other of the smaller villages. This goes from Interstate 44 mile markers 23 to 47. So make sure that you move to an interior room at the lowest level of the building if you are in any of those counties under the newly issued severe thunderstorm warning that goes in effect until 12:30 there. So that is something that we're going to continue to watch as the storm continues to move further towards the northeast here. So we don't actually have that warning, still has not popped up here, but it's around this area. I'm looking at it here. Um, and it goes just so let's see. I'm going to kind of fake draw it out. So it goes right through here, and then it kind of goes down this way, and then it goes like that. So that's the new severe thunderstorm warning that now goes until 12:30 a.m. for 60-mile-per-hour winds and nickel-size hail. But again, the big concern is going to be the 60-mile-per-hour winds because that is what could lead to the damage here. Let's see if we can get a new update here on the velocities to see if we have. So there's that new severe thunderstorm warning. It just updated on this one. And see, we are running
Absolutely.
into some power troubles. So just one moment as I address that.
Absolutely. You folks will have to bear with us again through the technical difficulties. Again, testing out many of these systems. So, again, we thank you all for bearing with us. Again, if you have any input on exactly what you'd like to see tonight, we're certainly able to take questions on that, as we mentioned throughout the broadcast. But again, time may be running out here before long because, again, we don't know exactly. And again, our battery dies. We lose things. Again, there's no saying how much longer we will be here to answer your questions. So, again, don't waste your time. Get those questions answered as soon as possible, again, relating to the weather, because we may not be here for much longer. Call in at 417-448-0819 to have all your most urgent weather questions answered. Again, at 417-448-0819. Let us know what those are. We'll answer them to the best of our ability as to what is going on weather-wise in your area. So, again, a number of possibilities there. Again, a great opportunity to be featured live on the air here with GWP. Again, you'll get to talk to us here, myself and co-host Jacob Palmer, who is working at the moment to get his power supply restored, to salvage some things in there. So we will be back with it certainly momentarily. But as we mentioned moments ago, there is a severe thunderstorm warning, again, close to much of our listening area. Of course, affecting Joplin, Carthage, Neosho, some of those main cities, some of those main communities that it is affecting, and it has been expanding. That, again, area affected, again, the time length or when it's set to expire, that has extended. Again, the area has expanded to the east a bit in terms of what all area it is expected to affect. And an important thing to note on this particular severe thunderstorm warning has an attached tornado possible tag. So again, we're seeing the possibility of it. We've seen some hook shapes. If you've been watching the radar closely, again, we've discussed that a few moments ago. Again, possibility of a funnel cloud forming, possibility that that becomes a tornado. Again, we're trending a little bit in the more severe direction at this point. Again, not abundantly clear. We're not quite there yet. Certainly not a full-fledged tornado yet. But again, certainly a severe storm, so it would be appropriate. So any of the folks in those areas at home who may be listening, anyway, certainly Joplin, Carthage, Neosho, and again, any of the surrounding areas, especially as this area affected by this storm warning grows, you want to take shelter appropriately in the lowest, most interior room of your home or building. Certainly want to avoid mobile homes, different things like that. Again, if you're on the road, again, if you're able to get to one of those locations safely where you can get inside and get to the lowest, most interior room of the house, sure, try doing that. But again, if you're not in a good spot to do that and the storm's really raging, in the case that a tornado's actually going on, actually coming toward you, best thing to do, you don't want to be on your road in the vehicle, again, because vehicles are loose, they can be sucked up. Certainly in the case of tornadoes, we don't want to see that happen. Again, best case scenario, same principle applies. You still want to get lower. And again, somewhat counterintuitive, perhaps. You may think that your vehicle's sturdy, but again, it can be swept away. So in those cases, you would actually be safer getting out. Again, parking, getting out, getting lower down into a ditch. So again, we want to be prepared for any scenario. And again, your best bet for being prepared for any of these scenarios, even beyond just what we're seeing tonight. Again, something that can apply for severe weather circumstances all throughout the year, any time of year. You can check out our GWP severe weather preparedness video, all that and much more on the Great World Productions YouTube channel. So we are checking in for some new developments on the radar picture for the folks viewing at home. Direct your attention to your screens. Again, appears similar area affected. Again, possible is continuing to expand. Jake, what are we seeing at this point?
So what are we seeing at this point? That is a very good question. We have some ongoing warnings, as we mentioned, across the area. We've got two severe thunderstorm warnings. This one's about to expire in Newton and Jasper County. And then, of course, now we have the warning here just east of there that we're going to look at in here in just a moment. But yeah, so we are actually now at the top of the hour. are. It is now midnight here, early Saturday morning here in Central Time Zone. And so we are still tracking the live, or we, we are still having our live coverage. As you can tell, it's definitely live coverage because we're making mistakes here and there, or at least I am. And so we are continuing our live coverage here on GWP of our ongoing severe weather that has been ongoing. As I already said, it's been ongoing. And so just looking here, let's go ahead and just get into it. So we've got some ongoing warnings here along the Red River Valley across Texas and Oklahoma. So this is just going across the country here. Just to look at some of the other storms that we're looking at. We've also got some flash flood warnings across Oklahoma, including Oklahoma City, where we were under some tornado warnings earlier today across that area with some very strong winds. Now those storms have moved into the southeastern part of the state, just to the south of Muskogee, well, I guess more central Oklahoma there. And then, of course, we've got two severe thunderstorm warnings ongoing here. Well, actually, one. This one just expired. So the severe thunderstorm warning in Joplin has now expired. Well, it expired, even though it does look like it did. So that has been ongoing. And then we've had some ongoing flooding to the north of Columbus and Ohio, as well as some flooding just to the south of Chicago and Illinois. And then we've got another flash flood warning further to the north as well. And then we did have some storms out there earlier today across Georgia and Florida, but those have now begun to back off. So essentially what we're dealing with is some flash flooding with non-severe storms through the Great Lakes. We've got a couple of severe storms ongoing across Oklahoma, Missouri, and into Texas, and then some flooding across Oklahoma as well. So that is currently where we stand here at the top of the hour here on live continuing coverage of GWP's severe weather coverage here on early Saturday morning.
Absolutely, Jake. As you mentioned, it is now early Saturday morning. Again, just a moment ago, top of the hour, of course, midnight Saturday night. So again, we are continuing to follow this storm coverage as it is developing. Again, we thank you all at home for sticking with us throughout the night and into the morning for all of that. Again, possibility of mistakes. Certainly, those happen. I know, Jake. Certainly, in my case, again, it's a bit of an illusion. I see it. It may appear I'm not. It's actually that I'm constantly making mistakes, so they just aren't as apparent. But again, believe it or not, it's happening constantly right before your eyes. So again, watch closely. You might just notice it. But again, it's so tough to make that distinction because it is constantly happening. Now, as you mentioned, those severe thunderstorm warnings happening across the country. Of course, Missouri, Oklahoma, down into Texas. A number of those going on. So if you're in any of those areas affected, some of the yellow, especially the bright red areas on the radar picture on your screen, if you'll direct your attention to it. Again, many of the folks at home, again, may be struggling to stay awake. Any of those who are still sticking with us at this point. But again, if you want to see, again, try keeping with that. Again, do whatever it takes. Again, stick those toothpicks into your eyes. Again, call in if you're hoping to stay up. Stay tuned for the coverage. Again, at 417-448-0819, whatever those questions are. Again, if you want us to tell you something to keep you awake, you can do that as well at 417-448-0819. Again, we'd love to hear whatever you might have to say. And again, let us know. Maybe we have some input on weather for your area. So again, I can't speak for, again, there's chances are across Oklahoma, as we see, as the pattern generally is, tornadoes and these sorts of storms forming tend to be a lot more severe across Oklahoma. So again, we haven't gone into as much haven't gone into as much depth that is on those items across the surrounding states, but certainly in the case of Missouri, we've seen one affecting close by our listening area. Again, the severe thunderstorm warning with a tornado possible tag attached to it, again, has been extended at least maybe a couple of times, and the area that it affects has also been extending. So again, in this area, again, either of the warnings affected by this yellow box on your screen at the moment. You want to take shelter, take the appropriate precautions at this point, as we mentioned throughout the broadcast. Go to the lowest, most interior room of your home or building. So again, that is what you want to do. Again, avoid mobile homes, different things like that at this point would be a good idea, certainly to stay on the safe side. And as we mentioned, of course, when this initially was issued, as soon as we found out about this severe thunderstorm warning with the tornado possible tag attached to it, again, that is reason enough if you really want to be on the safe side, again, to take shelter. But even now that we're seeing substantial signs, again, some of these hook shapes, again, possibility of a funnel cloud forming, that is indicative of a tornado forming. And again, so
Yes.
we're not quite there to a full-fledged tornado. Yes, more developments for us. Jake, what's it looking like now?
Yeah, so just kind of a quick correction is that we actually no longer have that tornado possible tag. That was with the previous severe thunderstorm warning, but that is definitely true. The warning that was in Joplin just a little bit ago did have a little bit of a hook shape to it, and so that's why there was that tornado possible tag. We were a little bit concerned in this area just to the south of Joplin around 11:32. There was a little bit of rotation, and then but it never really tightened. So you'll notice how it just never really got any stronger than it was. And so now at 12:03, that severe thunderstorm warning across the Joplin area has extended. And so now our severe weather threat is further towards the east. And so as far as where we would have those straight line winds, it looks like that we're around the Avila area, just to the east of Sarcoxy, now moving into Pierce City. And then Mount Vernon will be up next, where we could be looking at some 60-mile-per-hour winds and some small hail. But again, that tornado possible tag is no longer with us. So that is certainly some really good news on that front. But again, some heavy rain and thunderstorms as well as some 60-mile-per-hour winds are certainly going to be possible. Again, as we mentioned, there was a tornado possible tag when the storm moved through Joplin. I have been checking for reports of any damage in Joplin, and we do not have any at this point in time. So we didn't necessarily think that it was on the ground when it was actually happening, and I really don't have any reason to believe that it is now that the storm has passed. So that, of course, is some really great news with that. But we do still have that severe thunderstorm warning that is in effect just to the east of Joplin, now moving towards Mount Vernon at this point in time. Mount Vernon under the severe thunderstorm warning, and that goes in effect for Newton, Lawrence, and Jasper counties on the southern end of our viewing area. This goes until 12:30 a.m. So 60-mile-per-hour winds and some nickel-size hail. Of course, nickel-size hail is below severe limits, so likely we would not see a whole lot of damage out of that. But 60-mile-per-hour winds can cause damage to roofs, siding, and trees. So that is something we need to watch for, that leading edge of this thunderstorm now moving very close to the Mount Vernon area. So if you're in Mount Vernon right now, then you'll want to make sure to take shelter like this is a tornado, even though we don't really have any reason to believe that it is. Then we have a few other storms just to the southwest of this area, now moving through McDonald and Newton County as well. So some heavy rain and storms occurring across that region. We've even had a few storms that have been back building out to the west of Interstate 49. So it looks like that we could be dealing with these storms just a little bit longer than we anticipated. But just as a reminder, when that initial line moves through, our severe threat drops significantly. So I would not expect any of these storms to be severe. Kind of going out, we've got some additional storms now moving through across Lake of the Ozarks right now. So there's Lake of the Ozarks, Camden 10. These are all strong storms. We don't have any reason to believe that these are severe at this point in time. So of course that is some very good news. But again, Camden 10, Max Creek going through some very heavy showers and thunderstorms, now moving into the Osage Beach area as well as into Lake of the Ozarks there. We've also got these storms moving into let's see, so now we've got California getting involved in this, Eldon as well. This will soon be moving into Jefferson City, and I've heard the rumbles of thunder, seen a few flashes of lightning, because that means we're getting very close to this thunderstorm moving into the Columbia area. But the good news is that none of these have any wind or hail with them. So that is the good news. The only storms that we're concerned about are the ones within this severe thunderstorm warning. And then again, we also do have that special weather statement that for the non-severe hail and wind to the southwest of that. So this area is under a special weather statement until 12:30, 55-mile-per-hour winds, and some small hail possible with that storm as well. So two storms in particular that we're watching, and then the rest of the storms that are moving through the viewing area at this point in time are not severe.
Absolutely, Jake, is an important distinction, and thank you for the update. That, of course, we reported on previously. Again, that severe thunderstorm warning across a nearby listening area. Again, initially had that tornado possible tag attached to it. Of course, now has expired. So that means it's becoming less severe. Again, we're seeing a little bit of a step back here, maybe a little bit counterintuitive because we are still seeing that storm cycle expand a bit, even though it's become less severe. Again, they dropped that tornado possible tag. So again, the storm cycle, again, the indication is becoming less severe in its effects. Again, the possibility of funnel clouds that sort of petered out, didn't form into a full-fledged tornado, thankfully. But again, we still do see that storm expanding. So the pattern appears to be just stretching its legs a bit. Again, chances are it'll peter out before long because that is an indication. Again, we saw that tag dropped, that tornado possible tag. Things are becoming less severe and finally beginning to quiet down. We are seeing different patterns across the country, of course, but that seems to kind of be the general theme at this point, isn't it, Jake?
I'll say so. I mean, the fact that that tag was dropped is certainly a really good indication that we're seeing some weakening within that storm here. Just messing around with some of the different radars, seeing which one gives us the best view of that storm. Um, So we've got these different national weather services, and they have their own radars and velocities, and so we can kind of go back and forth between them. And it really just comes down to which radar site is closest to the actual storm itself. But sometimes, so there's a National Weather Service in Springfield that we talk about sometimes. That's where their radar is at, and so there's a little bit of a spot. You can actually see where their National Weather Service is because there's a brief moment where there's a brief spot on the radar where there's nothing that shows up because that's where the radar itself is. And so it can't actually detect, it can only detect what's around it, not necessarily what's right on top of it. And so that's why there's that missing gap right there. And then when you get really close to the radar site, it can get a little bit fuzzy sometimes. So that's why I keep switching back and forth so it doesn't get too fuzzy. But at this point in time, there's where we have our 60-mile-per-hour winds. Now, we have what I feel like this is very good news. We have some storms developing ahead of the severe thunderstorm warning. And so there's a couple of things to note about this. One, this is going to stabilize the atmosphere, which is going to make it really almost impossible for this storm to maintain its strength. So that's the good news. That's one reason why I think we're going to lose the severe thunderstorm warning very soon. But the other good news about that is that shows that the wind is actually being separated from the storm itself. And when that starts to happen, we call it a gust front because sometimes you'll have some really strong winds right before the actual storm hits. And so when that separation occurs, that's actually a good thing when it gets really windy before the storm hits because that shows that it's weakening. Um, so that, of course,
Yes,
is
absolutely.
what we're dealing with there.
Excellent information there. Thank you again for the updates, Jake, on that. So a number of developments across the storm cycles across the country here. So again, we are continuing to follow that across our listening area. And we thank you all again for bearing with us through the technical difficulties. But again, across Missouri, things seem to be settling down a bit finally, thankfully. Now, again, we saw that possibility a few moments ago with that severe thunderstorm warning affecting Carthage, Neosho, Joplin, some of the surrounding area, which initially had that severe, or not severe, of course, was already a severe thunderstorm warning, had that tornado possible tag attached to it, which has since been dropped. Again, that indicates that it is less severe than it initially was. Again, kind of counterintuitive perhaps because the storm cycle still is expanding, though it's dropped the tornado possible tag. But again, this does happen on occasion. Again, quite possible that storm cycle still expanding, just stretching its legs a little bit. But again, that means it's running its course. But important part, that tag was dropped, so that makes it a whole lot less severe. So very good to see that across our dear old state of Missouri. So again, an important development on that. We are also following things, some patterns going into Oklahoma, down into Texas. Some of those severe thunderstorms. Again, a little bit of tornado sort of a resemblance there. But again, that said, across the country at this moment, not nearly as severe as things could be. Jake?
Yeah, I would say that we're definitely in a really good place as far as compared to where we could have been with the environment that we had earlier today. And so, also, we may have a few spotty internet connections here as we are currently experiencing that storm moving through Columbia. The storm has picked up here in the Columbia area, so it's moving pretty much right on top of me at this point in time, or at least within the next few minutes. But the good news is it is not severe, and so that should keep us pretty much on the air, kind of going through. We'll start here where I'm at here in Columbia. So again, it's just to the west where we have the worst of that. Then it goes down to Jamestown, California, Missouri. Not the state. We're still in Missouri here, west of Jefferson City. So that's going to be moving into Jefferson City very soon. It's really along US 54 where we have some of these heavier storms. But again, none of these are severe at this point in time. So that is certainly some good news. I have been watching this part of the line because it would not surprise me if we got a severe thunderstorm warning somewhere along this line, probably more likely in this area than this area. And well, it appears that we just had a power flash that took place, is what I believe just happened. So, so yes, of course, the storm's definitely impacting us here in Columbia at this point in time. As we just had a power power surge that just took place within the last few seconds there. So, um, just continues things just continue to happen here live on the air tonight. So, not really a big surprise with that. So,
No, not terribly. Of course, when we see these storms again, a possibility of power surges and different things like that. Of course, involving electricity, certainly involving lightning. Again, some of the folks who have been with us throughout the night will have noticed that again, studio has been illuminated from time to time by lightning flashing outside the window. And again, there are certain precautions associated with lightning outside that we discuss at length in our GWP severe weather preparedness video, among other things. So again, one of the things that can cause, it can interfere with, again, during some of these storms, we occasionally see power surges. So again, that is something that you want to be prepared for. And again, those lightning strikes traveling through your wiring, that can be a possible risk. So again, there are certain precautions that are worth taking in that event. And again, likewise, of course, in that case, power outages are possible, though at this point we haven't seen a lot, at least not to my knowledge. We haven't done very much in-depth checking yet tonight on exactly how those power outages are looking across the country or across the state, exactly how many we're having, but wouldn't imagine there are a whole lot yet. Again, past night or so when we checked that, there wasn't a whole lot of that going on. But again, that's something that's possible whenever we see storming like this, a power outage. And again, we thank you all out there for bearing with us through these technical difficulties. Again, that is one of the possible risks that we always run during these severe weather live streams is, again, that we have a power issue. So again, it is possible that we lose signal or something like that. But again, nonetheless, we appreciate the feedback. So again, if you'd like to make a report, again, much of this is reported through poweroutage.com. But again, if you've got any questions, again, or for whatever reason, again, perhaps out of power totally, don't have a charge on any sort of device, able to report it, any other sort of device, don't suppose that would make a whole lot of sense. Able to watch this, certainly, but another great way to reach out again if you'd like to contribute any other information if you're dealing with issues in your area related to the weather, you can call us at 417-448-0819 live on air and have all of those burning questions answered about the weather in your area. Again, that number is 417-448-0819. So just taking glance, a quick glance at the map that is of power outages across the country at this moment, Jake. Again, we see a couple of states here with some power outage, though not a whole lot. Again, in Missouri at this point, again, as we might have expected, a little bit more there in Oklahoma. Again, not terribly surprising. They tend to get the short end of the stick when it comes to storms. They get a bit more severe weather in that sense. But again, things could be a lot worse on this front, I reckon, Jake.
Yeah, certainly at this point in time, I would say that we're faring pretty well here when it comes to power outages. Of course, as we mentioned here, we're only at 216 customers. Currently, we're at 51,000 across the nation, and really, quite a few of those are in the state of Wisconsin, and that's actually not related to thunderstorms. That's related to the ice storms that we've had across that region as of late. So that, of course, and in fact, that's something we haven't really mentioned as much. Of course, this is mainly about severe weather coverage here in the state of Missouri. That's really our central focus on GWP live, but we also have been tracking some ice across northern Wisconsin and Michigan, as well as central Minnesota. That's been ongoing with this same storm system, and then severe weather and flooding along this cold front as well. So this is a forecast chart, is what we call it, and it just shows all of the different weather going on across the country. Like we had a fire threat earlier today across the plains. We had some snow here across the Dakotas here in Minnesota. Some areas have actually forecasted up to 10 inches of snow across that region. So it's kind of hard to imagine that since we're in the month of April, but that is typical for spring there in the northern plains. And then, of course, again, as we mentioned, along that cold front, we do have that severe potential across the area. We haven't really talked about this as much, but we do have severe weather going into tomorrow, but not for this area. That's the important thing. Once that cold front moves through later tonight, which it actually already has for most of us, once that cold front continues to push through, our severe weather threat is going to be over. And then when the severe weather threat is over, then we will transition into cooler temperatures, and our severe threat is going to be further towards the east here as that cold front pushes eastwards as we go into tomorrow. Snow is going to be continuing tomorrow across the Dakotas and Minnesota. That ice will also continue even into tomorrow, even some ice developing across New England. Then as we go into Easter Sunday, your forecast does look just a little bit better for us as that cold front will move through pretty much everywhere. So overall, a high pressure building in across the state of Missouri, cooler temperatures, but we will see temperatures, we will see dry conditions going into your Easter Sunday. So should be, if you have one of those sunrise services, you'll want to make sure to bundle up just a little bit because temperatures will be in the mid to upper 30s, but you should be fine as far as temperatures go. As far as
Absolutely.
precipitation goes.
Yes, again, that said, of course, going into our Easter weekend, all leading up to Easter Sunday, again, things not looking too terrible in the grand scheme of things in terms of expected weather conditions. Of course, in the case of those sunrise services, as you mentioned, again, maybe a bit nippy of a morning, so you want to come prepared for that. But again, that said, things will be largely cleared up by the time we get to Easter Sunday, as we've talked about again throughout the night, of course, into this morning, as we covered, of course, yesterday on GWP News Weekly. Things expected to be much clearer for Easter Sunday. Again, some storms still running their course again, but things beginning to peter out finally. So again, will have likely run their course and be over with for the most part in time for, of course, largely our Easter weekend. A good part of it, certainly for Easter Sunday, what it all leads up to. So very fortunate on that front. Of course, the main areas that we're looking at to kind of be concerned about, again, some of the yellow, especially the red areas on your map on the radar picture. Viewers, the folks at home ought to be able to see on your screens at this point. Okay, it is possible that you cannot from time to time, but again, having any issues with that, have any questions, again, you can always call in and let us know. A great option as well to reach out is by putting your questions in the chat. Jake, any new developments for us?
Yeah, so I was just looking outside of the current conditions as that storm has now moved into the Columbia area, which of course is the line along the cold front. And so the storms that we have currently in this area are not severe. There was a few gusty winds. It looks like our winds are gusting at, oh, I would say probably only about 30 miles per hour at most. So not really a big deal right now for us, but the rain is coming down pretty heavy outside. We have some flashes of lightning, no hail for us, zero hail at this point in time. So that, of course, is good. So again, at this point, we don't have any hail being reported here in Columbia. Just a little bit of some gusty winds, some thunder and lightning, as well as some heavy rain. And so the same can be said to our south, just to the west of Jefferson City. So these storms are just now knocking on your doorstep there in Jeff City along US 54, Lake of the Ozarks. We're definitely in the thick of it right now from Max Creek over to Camdenton, Lake of the Ozarks to Eldon. And then as we go down towards Lebanon, storms are now moving into that area as well. And then Springfield, couple of storms kind of around the vicinity. And then just to the west of Springfield, that's where we have that severe thunderstorm warning that we have been tracking for 60-mile-per-hour winds, as well as some non-severe hail. And then we also have additional winds and hail to the south of that is non-severe, and that is now to the east of Interstate 49. This is just to the west of Cassville, as well as around Monette, and just to the west of Aurora. So that's where those storms are at across southern Missouri.
Absolutely, yes, some significant developments on that front across Missouri and the surrounding regions. Of course, we're seeing a bit of that in our region, of course, going into the four-state region affecting Oklahoma as well, even going down into Texas. Some of the storms and a large part where we're seeing these concentrated across the United States. That is what we're looking at. As we mentioned, things seem to be dying out largely. Again, some of that possibility of hail we saw earlier tonight, again, initially, of course, at its largest, if I recall rightly, was ping pong ball sized hail. As we mentioned, of course, thank you for your restraint, all of the paddle sport enthusiasts out there who are just dying to get out there again. Certainly. So, and in the case of any of those possible, again, coin collectors who haven't seen any in a little while, and on that note, of course, in terms of that, we cover that a little bit more in our GWP What's in Your Pocket episode. So again, a great resource there in terms of talking about that, and a possibility, certainly in terms of penny-sized hail. Well, pennies recently were discontinued in terms of being minted. Well, they're no longer being minted in the United States. So again, that raises a certain question, Jake. I don't know if you put much thought into this in terms of meteorology, is how long exactly we'll continue to use these analogies. Perhaps a while longer. Most everyone still knows what a penny is. Many of them are still in circulation. But again, at some point, you have to ask what's the next most comparable thing when we get to a point where people don't recall perhaps what those actually are, what the reference point is. Jake?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it draws a really big question, you know? I mean, how much longer are we going to continue using these things when they don't necessarily even exist anymore? So that is certainly something that is very interesting to note about that at this point in time, and something that one of our viewers could have put in the comments down below, and we would have gladly have taken the information, is that our cameras are currently not on, so nobody can actually see us. They can just see my screen at this point in time, but that is perfectly all right. So, still tracking that ongoing severe thunderstorm warning that will be expiring very soon as we have some strong winds now moving into the Mount Vernon area at this point in time. So, Mount Vernon, you're still under that severe thunderstorm warning. We still don't really have word on whether or not this warning is going to be extended or not. Based on the fact that we haven't heard anything, that is probably a good sign of what we're expecting to see with that severe thunderstorm warning. So we'll have to see if there's an update with that. And let's see. So it's whoa, that was quite a flash right there. That was probably very close. That flash of lightning right there. So um,
Yes, certainly. We are seeing lightning throughout the night, as we mentioned previously. Jake, I'm sure that you're still seeing some of it right there in your area in Columbia. We've seen a bit of lightning throughout the night here as well. As we mentioned, many of the folks at home have been watching closely. Of course, we now know that it may not have been, again, for much of this broadcast, have not necessarily been able to see our video, but I can tell you firsthand, folks, we have had some lightning throughout the night, and of course, even a little bit of it into the morning in our listening area here, certainly in Nevada, Missouri, some lightning throughout the night and a number of precautions. Of course, you don't necessarily have to have a rainstorm, a thunderstorm. Things don't have to be pouring down to be struck by lightning. That still is a threat. Again, lightning can happen during dry time. And again, that still is a risk that you can run. So again, just because it's not raining and pouring outside, and there still could be lightning. So if there's still a possibility of that storm, still possibility of lightning, that storm going in, again, just because it's not raining and pouring at the moment, it doesn't necessarily give you the go ahead in the case there's still lightning going on, just to run outside with that metal bucket on top of your head. Jake?
yeah, so I wouldn't run around with a flagpole or even really an umbrella. As a matter of fact, the wind would probably knock it out of your hand too. So you'd probably get, carried away like in one of those Disney movies where people like lift out their umbrella and they just disappear in the air. That would probably happen to you, except you would be disappearing into the storm itself. So probably not the best thing to be doing at this point in time. But then again, you can go ahead and give it a try and you can tell us how it all works. So that would be something you can do. As far as so now
Absolutely.
we're now at 12:32 a.m. So we're now at the bottom of the hour. That severe thunderstorm warning that was west of Springfield has now expired. As we can tell, these storms are definitely on a more weakening trend. I would not be surprised if we still had some gusty winds kind of in this area, but that is now south of Interstate 44, which means that it's really out of our viewing area at this point in time. Storms that are still in our viewing area, again, a few spotty storms along this line in Springfield. Then we're still watching this just to the north of Lebanon, stretching up into Camdenton as well. Storms are now moving through that area. The good news is that Eldon is now out of the storms. Lake of the Ozarks and Osage Beach, the storms are now exiting your area, and they are just about to move into Jefferson City. So Jefferson City over to Holt Summit, that's going to be the area that's going to be next in line. And then we've even got some thunderstorms here in Columbia as well. It looks like that the rain has slowed down just a little bit, so the worst of the storm has now moved out of the area, but still some periodic flashes of lightning and some rumbles of thunder are continuing with those storms here in the Columbia area. So the good news is at this point in time, we are about, I would say, 15 or 20 minutes, maybe 30 at most, from these storms being completely out of the viewing area. And so I would say in 30 minutes, we'll be completely done with this severe weather threat.
Absolutely, Jake. So it appears that this trend is on its way out. So these weather patterns, again, are becoming much, much less severe. And again, as we mentioned, though it's becoming less severe, again, there still are some lingering effects, some lingering showers, quite possibly into the morning hours. So just some of the lingering things, likely things, as we mentioned, throughout the night and into the morning here will be lingering, of course, possibility of some showers, but again, much of that likely has run its course, and we can expect reasonably at this point a fairly clear Easter Sunday. And for that matter, we talked about different precautions, of course, in the case of severe thunderstorms, things like that, certainly involving lightning. Again, we mentioned the scenario of the metal bucket. Of course, some of that reenactment in the case, Mary Poppins reenactment, stepping outside with your umbrella. Again, perhaps some risky business. Maybe not the best time to do that, but again, quite possible. If you happen to do it tonight, if you happen to step out and do that during one of the storms, well, let us know. Again, that's again one of the many things that you can reach out and contact us about. Jake?
Yes, and as you mentioned, it is Easter Sunday, or well, it's not yet, but it is Easter Sunday weekend. And so, here's what would be a better use for that metal bucket. Why don't you go on an egg hunt and collect eggs and throw them in that metal bucket? That would be a better use of pet pudding instead of putting that metal bucket on your head. That would be maybe a safer and more practical use later this weekend. And again, as far as those outdoor egg hunts, you'll be able to do them after tonight because the storms will clear out and we will dry out. And so that will be some good news. So I know of many who are going to be doing those egg hunts either tomorrow or on Sunday, some maybe even on Monday as well, the day after Easter. But that is where we're at this point in time with that. So let's go ahead and we'll just go ahead and update the radar here. And again, things are looking good here. The storms have now moved through Columbia, so Columbia, you're good to go. Jefferson City, you're still in line for the storms, but along US 63, if you're traveling between Jeff City and Columbia right now, you are probably experiencing some heavy rain, maybe even some strong winds. And then it looks like we are mostly east of US 54. Lebanon, you are next in line for the severe, or not severe, but strong thunderstorms. Lebanon, you're next in line, and then Springfield, and then down south of there. So that's currently where we're at when we look at the radar. And so based on where we're at, we are going to look at one more. We're going to look at the overview of our forecast one more time. Then we're going to come back to this radar, and if there's nothing else to show you, like nothing new pops up, then we'll go ahead and we'll end the live stream. So we'll start by just kind of looking at just a quick overview of what we have going on across the country. So we've got flood watches across Oklahoma and Texas, and severe thunderstorm watch that remains in effect across our viewing area across southwestern Missouri, stretching down into Oklahoma and Arkansas. This remains in effect until 5 a.m., but as I mentioned before, it's probably not going to last that long. I will probably lose this watch in the next hour or so. We've got some ongoing flooding across Illinois and Indiana, so that continues to be kind of a developing situation there. So we've got flash flood warnings in Ohio and Illinois as well. Ice storm warnings, as we mentioned, there is a winter side to the storm system on the northern side of the storm, and so that's where we're dealing with some ice storm warnings across Wisconsin and Michigan, looking at a few tenths of an inch across the northern parts of the state, and that can cause a lot of damage. Just a few tenths of an inch of ice can lead to some big problems. So we'll be watching that. And then lighter ice amounts across New Hampshire and Maine. So we've got those alerts there. And then we've got winter storm warnings for the snow across the Dakotas and Minnesota of up to a foot over the course of the weekend. Um, so we're watching that. And then we've got some freeze warnings here across the Rockies as well. So that's what we're dealing with when it comes to that. Let's get an update here from the National Weather Service in Springfield, their weather story, putting out that, again, that severe thunderstorm watch that we have until 5 a.m. So we've got the severe storm slight risk still in effect. And again, as we look at that timeline, currently from now until 2 a.m., we've got the center part of the region dealing with those storms, but then we're going to see that move into the eastern part of the state as we go into the early morning hours of your Saturday. As far as where do we have that severe weather risk? Well, we do still have that across northern Texas into central Oklahoma. We do have that slight risk for severe weather, so we're going to be watching that. That does include a tornado risk where we're in that 5% category across central and northern Missouri. We even have that hatched area, so EF2 tornadoes or stronger are possible. Winds are going to be a concern, but then hail. Hail has also been a really big concern tonight, and so we'll have to continue to watch that. Flooding, today's flood outlook shows us that we are in that slight risk. That's that 15% category. So we're currently in that at this point in time. So slight risk of flooding across the center part of Missouri. Let's go ahead and now we will show you the future radar here. let's go ahead and show you that. This is from Tropical Tidbits. So this is currently what we're looking at. So again, that line of storms will continue to move in. Again, we could have some lingering showers into the early morning hours. So if you're getting an early morning start for your Saturday morning, you could run into a few showers, maybe even a few rumbles of thunder. But by that point in time, the severe weather will be done. It would just be some light showers. By about 7 o'clock, most of the rain will be out of the area. So that is going to be some really good news. And as we mentioned, tomorrow there is going to be a severe weather threat, but it is going to be much further to our east. That cold front is going to move through. Our temperatures are going to drop off quite a bit, and we're definitely going to notice that as we go forward in time. And let's see, the last thing I was going to show you was rainfall amounts up to an inch, isolated higher totals if you get in those heavier thunderstorms are going to be possible. But then something else that the wonderful people there at the National Weather Service in Springfield put out earlier this afternoon, they actually made an Easter weekend forecast. Again, a few showers in the morning on your Saturday, highs in the 50s and 60s. Then we're going to get pretty cold Saturday night, so you'll want to watch out for the possibility of a frost. If you have any crops that could potentially be damaged from the frost, then you may want to cover those up, or you can always lightly water them. You just lightly sprinkle water on those crops before the sun rises, then you can actually prevent that frost from killing the crops. So you might want to do that Sunday morning before you do any of your Easter celebration. And as we mentioned, it's going to be wonderful weather for that egg hunt. We've got sunny conditions with temperatures in the upper 50s and low 60s expected as we go into your Easter Sunday. So once we get through these storms through the rest of tonight, we will be good to go as far as that forecast goes for this Easter weekend.
Absolutely, yes, Jake. A number of important developments. As we mentioned, of course, the storm cycle, most of them that we see going on appear to be petering out, appear to have run their course, kind of settling down, and setting us up again as expected for a nice clear Easter. So we may see some lingering effects, some rain showers, different things like that. Again, as these things wrap up, nothing too serious would appear at this point. So very fortunate for that. Again, of course, a number of Easter festivities likely going on, of course, in the couple of days ahead. So some great things there. Certainly, anything else leave the folks with that ought to know going into the weekend, Jake?
Yeah, so as we mentioned, of course, we would only really continue the live stream if a new warning were to pop up before we gave that final forecast. But we will just do a quick run through of the radar. So again, none of these storms are severe. So that, of course, is really good news. Columbia, storms have now moved through Jefferson City. Storms are now moving in. Lake of the Ozarks, Camdenton have already moved through. Really, the only areas that are in our viewing area that have not seen the storms that are about to are Lebanon and Jefferson City. So if you are outdoors in Lebanon or Jefferson City, you'll want to move inside because that line of storms that we've been talking about for the rest of this evening is about to move in. But again, the good news is we're not dealing with anything severe. These are just general old thunderstorms that you would see on a nice spring day. Nothing severe that we have to worry about at this point in time. So before we close
Absolutely.
here on the live stream, I just want to check to see if we've had any new reports of damage, and it appears that we have not had any reports of damage. That is some good news. So it appears that we have favored very well on this Good Friday severe weather threat.
Absolutely, yes, very, very well indeed. Again, minimal damage across the area. Those severe storms, not nearly as severe as they were expected to be, or as they could have been. Could have been a lot worse than what we saw along the course of the night. So, again, very fortunate, as we mentioned just moments ago. We are, of course, going into Easter weekend, so a number of festivities leading up to that. Amid all of that, let us not forget the reason for this season. And with that, we conclude this broadcast. Until next time,
I'm Jacob Fulmer.
and I'm Isaac Hedges, host of GWP Live. From all of us at GWP Live and Great World Productions, happy Easter, good night, and God bless.
Yes, and we will have just one more quick reminder that we will have our Easter special here on the Great World Podcast that will be premiering tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. So you'll want to make sure to stay tuned for that. Otherwise, have a great Easter weekend, and we'll see you back here then.